Yes, sir. We are live now.
Okay, right. Ashok sir, with your permission, we would like to start the session officially now.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for joining us today. This is going to be the last expert plenary session for this 2-day national seminar cum workshop on Rabindranath Tagore. Indeed, it is a great honor and privilege that for this very important last session we have with us one of the most senior academic in India, Professor Ashok Sachdeva sir. Professor Ashok Sachdeva sir is a professor in English. He is associated with Devi Ahalya University, Indore, Madhya Pradesh. He has contributed immensely to the field of literature, to the field of policy making, to the various committees at state as well as national level for various education policies. He has contributed immensely to the field of research, writing research himself and contributing to the development of the field of research, as well as he has guided several PhD students in his illustrious career. Uh, we are really fortunate that Professor Ashok Sachdeva sir has agreed to take this session. And he is a man of literature and language studies, and he himself has worked a lot in the field of Rabindra literature and the literature in India after Rabindranath Tagore. And his talk today will focus on this. With this very brief overview, I would like to invite Professor Ashok Sachdeva sir to deliver his session on behalf of the H.M. Patel English Studies Center as well as the College of Fine Arts. Thank you. Welcome, sir.
A very good afternoon to all of you. I am thankful to Dr. Mittal for giving this opportunity as well as to speak on Rabindranath Tagore, such a giant literary figure. I would like to share my screen with you. Uh, Here we go. I hope the screen is visible.
No. Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is visible now.
Okay. I hope the screen is visible. Yeah. Rabindranath Tagore, everything comes to us that belongs to us if we create the capacity to receive it. This is what he said. Just the formal details in the beginning that this is roughly the period from 7th May 1861 to 7th August 1941. So he was the first non-European, first Asian, first Indian, first lyricist to win the Nobel Prize in Literature. And this credit goes to Rabindranath Tagore and to India for such a giant achievement. He was a humanist, universalist, internationalist, an ardent anti-nationalist. He was also called the Bard of Bengal, and he embodies the quintessence of Indian culture. Gandhiji hailed him as the great sentinel of modern India. Tagore was known also as the Shelley of Bengal, and some literary critics also called him John Keats. And Madhusudan Dutt, for example, a great writer in Bengal, was called as the Wordsworth, and some other Bengali writers, predecessors, may have been called Shakespeare, Wordsworth. But this Rabindranath Tagore was called Shelley of Bengal, and for the romanticism that he represented. Actually, Bengal is synonymous with Rabindranath Tagore, and he has brought about a great metamorphosis in Bengali literature and culture, and also not only Bengali and Indian literature or the as such, but throughout Indian literature, he has brought about a revolution. Even from the east coast till the west, within the map of India, you can say that even it has impacted Gujarat, Maharashtra, and even Sindh and Punjab. I came across many articles lately where the writers from all these languages, Punjabi and Sindhi, they have acclaimed and recognized the contribution of Tagore in the Indian literature as such. He was a cultural icon for India and a key figure for innovation and modernizations of Bengal literature. His formative influence is there on many modern Indian writers. You can say W.B. Yeats actually he cherished a very good friendship with W.B. Yeats, and it was W.B. Yeats who wrote preface to his acclaimed work for which he got the Nobel Prize, W.B., which is Gitanjali, the songs of offering, you can say. W. Yeats remarks, we write long books where no page perhaps has any quality to make writing a pleasure, being confident in some general design, just as we fight and make money and fill our heads with politics. All dull things in the doing, while Mr. Tagore, like the Indian civilization itself, has been content to discover the soul and surrender himself to its spontaneity. So meeting Tagore was for Yeats what Snezna Debicki refers to the renewal of Indian spell. W.B. Yeats actually, it reminds of one more incident while in 1912 when he went to London. Actually, he was carrying the manuscript of Gitanjali along with him, and he lost that while traveling with the London Tube, London Metro trains, London Tube, as you can say, underground. And so it was later discovered and found in the lost baggage counter, where he was able to recover it and got it back. And it brought him a lot of name and fame. And after soon, 1 year later, he got Nobel Prize for that. W.B. Yeats actually, he had written the preface and he had also edited this Gitanjali, and he was going through the manuscript times and again. Actually, there was a friend, William Rothenstein, who was instrumental in bringing these two personalities together. And W.B. Yeats became a very great fan of Rabindranath Tagore. And we can see, and there are many articles, research articles, and the articles of great interest that and compare W.B. Yeats with Rabindranath Tagore for their parity, for their, how they have been paired off, and what are similarities and dissimilarities between them, and how they were anti-nationalist, and how they were sort of contributing to the partition literature, and how India and Ireland. So it is a long history to go into such minute details. Aldous Huxley has also written an article on Rabindranath Tagore, and he's highly influenced by this great literary figure. Aldous Huxley has written an article, Reflections on Tagore, where he says, the aspect of Tagore's career which interests me the most is not so much his poetical work. What interests me is his practical work, his effort to implement his high ideals in daily life. And this remark is equally applies to all the works of Rabindranath Tagore. The novels that he has written, actually, he was a polymath. A lot of titles have been given to Rabindranath Tagore. That he was essayist, he was a journalist, he was a novelist, he was a prose writer, he was a musician, he was a painter, he was a philosopher. The list is endless, and innumerable list. It is difficult to recall such list, but he was a multifaceted, and he was a multifaceted, multidimensional person. And his enormous merit, as Huxley calls it, lies at once a great idealist and a practical man of action. And this is what is reflected in all the works of Tagore, in all the short stories of Tagore and the novels of Tagore. And most of the work contributed by Rabindranath Tagore was non-fictional one, where he wrote essays, and illustrations, and journal articles. So we can also say, according to Huxley, I feel it quite apt here to mention this great analysis of Rabindranath Tagore, that he was a mystic, essentially a mystic, with the Indian conception of the deep self, the Atma, the divine essence of the world. A Mahayan, then a Hinayan Buddhist, was a tantric, the tantric school. He was himself a tantric, a mystic who aspires to achieve it within the world. He is a mystic who would continue to live the worldly life and at the same time achieve this divinity and contribute. And he would like to achieve within the practical aspects of living the worldly life or the domestic life as such, and to see the absolute within the relative, the infinite within the finite, eternity within a moment. Huxley has beautifully described these essences, the very essence, the very crux of the philosophy of Rabindranath Tagore. A bodhisattva rather than an arhat, and to achieve nirvana while working in the field, while working in the world. And so, another comment that goes to the ability to combine other literary voices into his own is what Tagore, responsible for a giant contribution to English literature. Other influences on Tagore, within quotes, were British colonialism, and because of colonialism, he was exposed early in life to the literature of William Shakespeare, John Milton, George Gordon, Lord Byron, who became his particular favorites. The philosophy of John Stuart Mill, Jeremy Bentham, included John Wolfgang von Goethe and Guy D. Of course, it was he read them in original language, Rabindranath Tagore. So you can see, he is a creative genius with 22,000 poems. This is a tentative figure, not very accurate. And the songs are 2265. I have written here 2,500. 8 novels, 24 plays, short story volumes, a mass of prose. It has been reshaping India, Indian literature, even till now. And the musical scene, he was a painter, he was a musician, and he was a literary figure. In 1915, he was awarded with the knighthood by the British King George V, which he had to later forego because he was very disturbed by the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. And soon after he got his Nobel laureate, the world jumped into the World War First, and then there was a Jallianwala Bagh massacre and so many mishaps, and therefore he renounced this title afterwards. And he was the only literateur who penned anthems of 2 countries, India, and even the national song of Nepal is inspired from Rabindranath Tagore. Indian, of course, is Bangladesh and various, even a few more other countries as well, even Sri Lanka. The Indian national anthem has been recognized, therefore, as the best in the world. His collections of song is called Ravindra Sangeet, which has called itself as a unique genre of music. His songs cover diverse themes and range from devotional hymns to erotic compositions. In 1939, he established an institute, Vishwa Bharati, with the money he had received from the Nobel Prize. And once his Nobel Prize was also stolen, which he got it back. Now, I would quote here the remarks of Ravi Shankar in Rag Mela. He says that he was a great musician, and he remarks that had Rabindranath Tagore been born in the West, he would now be as revered as, respected as Shakespeare and Goethe. He might have come at par with Shakespeare and Goethe. So he is the author of the profoundly sensitive, fresh and beautiful verse of Gitanjali, poetic songs which were both spiritual and mercurial. And we can see his prose, which is elegant prose with magical poetry. And then he was a polymath because he was a Bengali poet, Bengali writer, composer, philosopher, painter, progressive visionary, and a social thinker, an educationist. His education philosophy is again worth to be noted. So, you can see that he has inspired 3 national anthems, even more than that. He had made a school from his Nobel Prize, and Gitanjali was written, the preface was written by W.B. Yeats, and they have a long association with them. And Tagore, you can see that his open air university in Shantiniketan is among the, wonderful, excellent contribution on his part. I would like to now I have stopped sharing. The slides are too many, but I would like to share with you there are other aspects of the Tagore's. You can see that what we can see in Rabindranath Tagore. Now let us come straight to the writings of Rabindranath Tagore. And we can see that the Rabindranath Tagore, actually he was primarily, I think there was a session NEP 20 last, Rajan Singh Jareda spoke about this, but I would like to add certain things to it, that he favored the education not only on the verbal level, but on the level of concepts, and he wanted to emphasize the non-verbal side of man, which is physiological, emotional, imaginative, non-rational side of human beings as well. So it is not the verbal aspect, but it is the non-verbal more that he was. So he was a painter as well, as you can see, was a great artist. So in literature also, I think this feature plays a vital role in the sense that how he highlighted the non-verbal side of man. Even I'll be quoting some of the novels, especially 2 or 3 novels and one short story, and how those stories and the characters have become the forerunner, or they have become the precursor of Indian English literature. And Rabindranath, the credit goes to Rabindranath Tagore, that he has paved the way for Indian English and for the Indian thought being written in English language, Indian thought in English. So there was a decolonization process of English that started with Rabindranath Tagore, which might have started earlier as well, but he gave a boost to it, he gave it impetus to it in the sense that Indian thoughts, Indian philosophy, Indian ideology came into his literature, and English was decolonized, and English became more Indianized. It became our own language, the language of Indians. So he was customizing India and customizing the traditions, and he was presenting India before the world through his literature. And we can see this reflects in his language, this reflects in philosophy, right since his childhood. The healthy family atmosphere that he would be brought up, that Upanishads and Vedas were a common feature, regular feature. They were placed with the ordinary books of the worship, and therefore he could see that Vedas and Upanishad, and he could internalize them, and that impact can be seen in his literature as well. So one more quality he said. So I will tell you that how he brought the non-verbal side into literature, and the credit goes to him, and how he became a forerunner, and his characters became a forerunner and precursors to various characters which Shashi Deshpande, Anita Desai, Bharati Mukherjee, Nayantara Sehgal, and so many Indian women writers as well as other Indian authors have imbibed. Another quality he said is, man must be vitally savage. He should be vitally savage, but mentally civilized. The vital savage should be, it doesn't actually give the connotations that it has to be in the violence or in brutality, no. Vital savage in the sense that it should be recognized, it should be accepted, and it should be directed. With this view, he made use all kinds of psychophysical techniques. This is what Aldous Huxley also examined, was highly impressed by the philosophy and ideology of Rabindranath Tagore. So he says the psychophysical techniques he adopted, and these techniques he also adapted in his works and the novels. I'll be giving you some illustrations. And he designed to train the perception, to train their kinesthetic sense in bodily movement. So the development of body and mental faculties were equally important for him. So the education should not be at a verbal and conceptual level. And luckily, after 100 years, our NEP 2020 has been able to take cognizance of this. And another important quality, which through his painting, even through his literature, which we can see that by writing his stories or by writing the short stories or the novels or even the non-fictional works, he was trying to train, he was trying to supplement, he was trying to complement what education cannot formally provide, because education is based on the rote learning. Education is based on the verbal sort of skills. So he wanted to train our perception, and he wanted to train our five senses, which could be trained, and he wanted to train our imagination also. So this great job Rabindranath Tagore has done by training our perception, by training our imagination through his writing. And therefore, we can see that improving the quality of perception tends to general intelligence of extreme importance in his writing. And the power of perception is immense, and he has tried to assert this importance. It is not just the formal learning or skill learning as such, but these things value more and improve the individual capacity for and therefore a person will be able to enjoy his life. So literature becomes a mirror to life in that true sense. So the readers, the audience, they have been trained to see and hear and test with acuity and discrimination, and teach our children to appreciate the world through the channels of direct perception. And therefore, in this way, we can decrease the boredom, we can decrease the neurosis that is spreading across the world, and the conflict and the war situation. World War First, World War II, and so many things took place. So the problem of and what the problems of training are there in imagination. He would bring those problems to the surface and try to compensate in his writings. So his insistence is on education in music and dance and literature, visual arts was immense. Not only that, we should be trained in imagination, but it has to be geared up, it has to be organized, because the organization of imagination is so that we shouldn't be haunted by fears and anxieties, and to make use of our immensely powerful faculties of imagination. We are gifted with imagination, and therefore he wanted to bring this to the forefront, that as human beings we are gifted with the faculties of imagination, and with this, of course, the physical development also contributes to it, supplements it, and the yoga he gives Yoga Jog, you might have heard about this word. And the great philosopher Spinoza who said, make the body capable of doing many things, and in this way you will perfect the mind and help yourself to come to the intellectual love of God. Another literary critic who is Sarojan Ray, I happened to read her article. She said that Rabindranath Tagore is not only a poet but a critic of poetry also. And he wrote two books on criticism, two booklets expounding his views on literature, which clarify this. One is the personality and the religion of the art. These two books have also affected our Indian writers in English to a great extent. Tagore, you can see, Tagore started his career in England. Career means, you can say, literary career, when England was moving away from the poetic tradition set by Tennyson, the Victorian tradition of poetry. And it was believed that the art should be for the art's sake. So you alienate art from life, and this is known as decadence. So the exuberance of Swinburne, the witticism of Oscar Wilde, and the dreamy but vacuous melodies of the last decade of that century, that passed into the Bengali poetry and as well as Indian literature as well. In Europe and in Bengal, this cult of beauty became the dominant note of poetry. Madhusudan Dutt, as you know, who was held as the Milton of Bengal, Bankingham Chatterjee, he was known as the Scott of Bengal, but Tagore was known as the Shelley and Keats, Shelley rather. And he says, beauty is truth, truth is beauty, the symbolism of Master Link, But he was not, in that sense, an imitator. He was not a slavish imitator, Rabindranath Tagore. And but his poetic tradition was deeply steeped in his own. He was firmly grounded. He was firmly footed on his own ground, with the Indian soil as such, and therefore no foreign could dislodge him. Fully aware of the Western theories of aesthetics, he never abandoned the Indian standpoint view of Anand as the Ras theory, the Anand and what we like Walter Pater. He also considered delight as a chief aim of art, which is reflected in his works and also in the works that followed. We can see that Upanishad and Vedas, and he brought all such the ultimate reality, the ultimate joy. No need to ponder much about this. But the modern, Rabindranath Tagore was a modern and postmodern as well. And he was colonial and post-colonial in many senses. So he has intimate knowledge of the ancient rhetoric, but he gave it a modern idiom. So he defies all psychological and biological interpretation of genesis of art, and he focuses more on our emotions. And during his writings, he says that emotions are the gastric juices which transform the world of appearance into the more intimate world of sentiments. The outer world has its own juices, having the various qualities which excite our emotional activities. So, Ras theory that signifies, and the juices, and that's what can be seen in his writing. So, there are a lot of film adaptations. You can see there are lot of movies in Bollywood, Hindi movies, Bengalis movies. Lot of Hindi and Bengalis movies have been made, and a lot of film adoptions. Of late, last week I saw a movie Darban 2020 released on Prime Video. 20 is worth watching. You can see that the whole movie is immersed in this emotion world, emotion of the protagonist, and the loyalty, emotion of loyalty, devotion, and also the beauty of his character. Sometimes, the bad character has some element of goodness in him, and good characters may have an element of bad in themselves. So he brought out the good elements even in the bad character, and that was contributing the beauty of the character as such. So he makes use of ancient literature, Mahabharata, Ramayana, into, but he was not a traditionalist in that sense. He was not a traditionalist, he was a modern. When he started writing, then people rediscovered the idea, the ancient themes that ancient themes could provide. Excuse me. Sorry for interruption. It is illustrated by some familiar examples from the epics also. He gives one example from Yudhishthira, who was the chief of the Pandava clan, was the hero of the Mahabharata, him and Arjuna, two full-blooded warriors. They tower over Yudhishthira. Now, Yudhishthira is the hero, but they are in the subordinate roles, but they tower over him. And therefore, Yudhishthira has been present as the ideal king, possessed of all the virtues, and the younger brothers are more human, responding powerfully to their impulses. So the elder is a distal figure, and this is how the subordinate characters become more real, more connected with the soil than the main character Yudhishthira. So this is even the Lakshman and Rama. We can see that Lakshman was more worldly, and he stands at the similar footing as Ram does, many of his own individual virtues. Some critics have branded Tagore poetry as an escapist and unreal. Many British writers have talked very derogatorily about, even they have jumbled with the spellings of his name. But ultimately they had to realize his importance. And then the modernist writer sometimes says the seamy side of the ugliness of the slum, the orgies of the pub, the source of society, the objects fit for poetic treatment, but the grim realities of life that is around, the squalor of a big industrial city like Calcutta, the misery of the pavement, and the horrors of the slums. So, modernity does not lie in depicting and presenting things as modern. It is more in the attitude, more in the one's inner psyche. So, even he says that the death is not an end in itself. Tagore realized, like Robert Browning, death to him, or like John Donne, is not the end of all existence. He saw beauty where others saw only ugliness. So, so object of beauty is not the pub, it's the poet's pen that alone can invest it with beauty and transport it to poetry. And therefore, we can see small things like ugly things such as toothless comb, an empty bottle of scented hair oil, soap washed to its marrow can become poetical even. If only one has to look beyond their appearance and see the whole truth of their existence. So, their romantic past. Truth is not what you see, but very often what you do not see. That is also the truth. So he has given many examples of the cows and other example and the rural imagery and such grotesque view, which they have their own beauty. So intellectual stuff in a novel or poetry is out of place, but it will be out of place if it has no bearing on the character, if it has no effect on the character. Therefore, you can see that the modern man nowadays is weighted down, is weighed down with too much of thought, but it has to be, true art must be based upon balance and proportion. So many modern novels are dying because of this lack of connectivity, and they lack this element of universality. And the novels and the writers, those who have this quality, they become widely acclaimed and all-time reading joy. Now let us see. I would like to make a mention here of Radha Chakravarti, who was the wife of an IS officer, and she embarked upon the work of translation of Tagore's stories and novels. And she was the translator who was immensely, influenced by Tagore. And there are many shades and shades, sounds, which is the theme of this conference, shades, sounds, and music. She was so overwhelmed, so impressed that she embarked upon and decided to translate the works of Rabindranath Tagore. And she remarks, Radha Chakravarti remarks, who is the prominent and premier, you can say, the primary translator of his works. He says that the character of Binodini in Chokhar Bali, which is a novel, a Labanya of Shesha, she says that I couldn't realize how and when Tagore became a part of my life. I started reading more and more of his writing. What captivated me more was his choice of simple language and clarity in thought and approach. So in terms of language, in terms of theme, in terms of emotion, recipe of emotions, recipe of feelings, we can say that R.N. Tagore was Shahenshah-e-Jazbat, you can say, king of emotions. And one important thing that what I feel is that the feminism, Rabindranath Tagore had a very significant role, very prominent role. Even he might have initiated this, he professed this idea He was the feminist in the sense. Maybe he was brought up in the healthy atmosphere and he was surrounded by healthy female figures around him. His own grandmother, who had a free expression in her life, he was impressed by her. And his own mother, Sharda, and his Bhabi, Kadambari, such influence of such women, a lot has been said about them yesterday um, in the first session and the second session, that influence of Kadambari, his Bhabi on Rabindranath Tagore. So under the influence of these healthy influence of femininity, of feminism, he had a healthy growth and he cultivated the attitude of feminism. Therefore, he conceived of a character, he made a character Binodini in Chokrabali. And you can see this Binodini is a forerunner, is a precursor of many of the female protagonists in the novels of various women writers in English. To name a few, Shashi Deshpande, Anita Desai, Bharati Mukherjee, and Ruth Pravar Jhabala. Many all Indian writing in English. The list is endless of Indian writing in English. And that followed him. Even R.K. Narayan, his influence was there on R.K. Narayan as well in various shades and colors. So this Vinodini, I could realize, so he talked about, but his own daughter, he was very upset, melancholic and sad in the sense that his own daughter was suffering at the hands of her in-laws, which pained him, and therefore he was very much in favor of his feminism, and he talked about wrote about emancipation of women in the 19th century that reflected in his writing, which was not so prominent in the works of other writers. As Radha Chakravarti comments. So all had a distinct identity who tried to societal norms. So the enigmatic personality of female protagonist Vinodini, the character has a multiple layers in her. The book was far ahead of time. So Rabindranath Tagore was a visionary in that sense. The characters challenged the convention and family bounds. This further inspired Chakravarti to translate his works, and this also paved the way for future writers. And now we see that Indian writing in English is a rich genre in itself. And the poet was so famous in the West as only as a romantic and a spiritual. Here was guided by the necessity of critical reasoning and importance of human freedom. Let me talk more about Binodini. I'll be taking 2 or 3 novels and one short story, Darban also, which I happened to see last week on Prime Video. I happened to see some of the movies in Bollywood movies. One picture produced by Lata Mangeshkar, Lekin, which deals with the supernatural aspects and various other themes are there. Interesting movie, which keeps you spellbound. And a creative people, and the creative person goes on recreating, and recreation is the last resource. It is recreating more than the recreation. Readjustment of old material by new, seeing not by new sights or insights. Rabindranath introduced new tonalities, narrative practices, and forms of articulation. I'll be telling more about his influences on Indian writers in English. It's necessary to deal with a little bit on this Binodini, Chokrabali, and the Gora novel and the short story. And I would recommend all of you to watch the film adaptations, the movies that are based on Rabindranath Tagore. And there is a long list of them in the Bollywood as well. And some movies have been remakes, they have been remade in almost in every decade. One novel that this is the only novel, Chokrabali, that had changed the conventional trends and tendencies of any sectional literature. And in design and technique, this Chokrabali is the first all-round psychological novel. devoted to the study of social problems, of course. And it is the forerunner, it's a precursor of this special class of fiction. Action and incident cease to dominate the field, and there is more of analysis of character. For example, you see the psychoanalysis or in the characters of Anita Desai. The story of Chokar Bali is very short and it can be finished in one hectic spurt, but its real extent is indicated by the seesaw of meeting sentiments, emotion of the chief dramatist personally, Binodini, another character Asha, Mahendra, and Bharti. Will not be going into the summary details of the novel, but we'll be giving you a little bit of analysis of this Binodini. So you can see there is systematic analysis and there is a relationship between thought and actions of the man. In the period of sadhana, Rabindranath genius was finding an outlet in so many directions at the same time, simultaneously. In poetry, in section, in social, in political activities, and also in you can say in discussion of different ideologies in philosophy. Just like he was also influenced by Bacon and Montaigne, but as we call about Bacon's philosophy, so we can call about Bacon is says to be wisest, meanest, and brightest of mankind, but for Rabindranath Tagore, we'll say he's the brightest, wisest, and the noblest of the soul. So Binodini, you can see about coming back to this character again, she is drawn as the woman of a strong faith, as it has been shown in several occasions in the novel, as coming to the verge of submitting herself to Behuri, her paramour, in some intense moments of weakness. So that has also been very highlighted. But you can see he could upheld the moral virtues and values Rabindranath Tagore. And he talked about women emancipation, women liberation. But the later writers, they have taken recourse to various themes of subversion, perversion, extramarital, perimarital. They have their own feminine framework, feminine strategies and methodologies to find expression. And the female protagonist, they are struggling for the life, self-fulfillment, identity crisis, self-introspection, self-actualization, and whatnot. And achieving self-fulfillment. So let us see Binodini, but there is no perversion as such. But the pervert and subvert waves have been like Manju Kapoor and
ના ના યાર મેં પેલા બોક્સમાંથી કાઢ્યા હતા હા હું જોઈ લઉં હા
આ એ જ છે પેલી લિંક છે ને એ જ
હા
છે
એટલે એક જ મિનિટ કનેક્ટ ના થયું ને એટલે હું જોઉં છું
આપણે નામે છે નથી કરી નામ લઈ થયું તમારું આવ્યું
હા એટલે પેલું એ તો એ ચાલુ
બિગમાં જોઈન કરતો પેલું માઇક અને લો ઓફ કરી
mark of Jawaharlal Nehru, our Prime Minister.
વિડિયો
Not only in the Bengali, but throughout in Indian, every state came to have felt the impact of Rabindranath Tagore. Be it, I discovered many articles where the Sindhi literature and Gujarati literature were also influenced by Bandar Umashankar Joshi, a very good writer and character and great fan. I happened to read his article also lately, and I have given certain quotations from his article also. And then Eon Jack also, who has written favorably and is not satisfied that Rabindranath Tagore was not given the proper place that is due to him in the world literature. Eon Jack, and there are very bright remarks about him. One thing, then I would like to mention here, with many poetic forms and techniques like lyric, sonnet, ode, dramatic monologue, dialogue poems, long narrative and descriptive works, and prose poems, and for both West and for Tagore, you can see many readers, are overwhelmed by the musical and verbal imagery and rhythms that support. Long collection,
God.
which is 220, almost 2,265s.
Sir, same.
And he was also talked about, he is also talking about the Vaishnav Kirtan and also the Western tunes that picked up and the experimentation and synthesis that Tagore marked in his entire career. In short, many things. And many wonderful remarks are there by Western writers also. So, Yeats was overwhelmed by the subtlety and depth of Gitanjali, and therefore he wrote a preface. And his remark is, I have carried the manuscript of these traditions about me for the days, reading it on railway trains or on the top of omnibuses, in restaurants, and I have often had to close it lest some stranger would see how much it moved me. So, this is a wonderful remark by W.B. Yeats. There are articles which compare W.B. Yeats and Rabindranath Tagore also. So, and the Western perception of Tagore's work and how he has been. I would like to mention a few remarks of Ian Jack, like getting the Nobel on 13 November 1913, and that aroused a lot of fervor. And he says about his experimentation with English and decolonizing English. Ian Jack says that how he described Taj Mahal, the Taj Mahal. He says it's a teardrop on the face of eternity. A teardrop on the face of eternity. And he also one inscription which Wilfred Owen's mother found in her dead son's pocketbook, which was a line from Rabindranath Tagore. When I go from hence, let this be my parting word, that what I have seen is unsurpassable. So his translation into English are like an embroidery seen from the back, but this may not be a very healthy remark, but shows the ability of Tagore in decolonizing English, which ultimately the West had to accept. So he stood for the synthesis of East and West. He admired the European intellect, and he felt betrayed by the Britain conduct in India in various ways, Western. So therefore, that's why he had to. There's one writer who's Victor Euboulis. He wrote from University of Latvia, and he says that Shelley thought poets were the legislators of the world, but Keats was sure poems were dictated to him by a higher being. Difference between. So in case of Rabindranath Tagore, he was dictated by a higher being. So Yeats and Tagore, you can say both were anti-colonial, anti-nationalist, and partition literature can be found. And each drew from imagery of ordinary people, rural imaginary, national cultural consciousness. These are some of the hallmarks, some of the key features which, and the British invasion and the exploitation and that whatever they talked about. So, Yeats and Tagore relationship give it a flip, the focus from how Yeats related to Tagore to look instead of it. Tagore viewed Yeats is a give and take of both, but that is a natural one. It's not bound by the selfish interest. It was rather a natural outcome of. As I told you, his grandmother's Digambari's influence was immense, and this can be seen in the influence can be seen in his feminist approach, decolonizing English, and the way he has influenced Indian writing in English, his sister-in-law Kadambari, and so on. So East and West do not represent in his work antagonistic and incompatible attitudes of human mind, but they are the India's great men of letters. But I will quickly
हमारा वीडियो चल।
I'll take 5 minutes more, Mithil sir. I'll take 5 minutes more.
Sir, we have to conclude very soon, sir. We have the guests already arrived and joined. But yes, sir, two minutes more, sir, to
Okay,
conclude.
okay, sir. Okay, sir. Yes, sir. Just a minute.
Yes, sir, you can conclude your talk.
Yes,
That should be okay with us. Yes.
Yes. So you can see these are the influences. I quickly sum up with the showing of these. I think my screen is visible, screen sharing is visible, and and these were the remarks of the Raja Chakravarti which I mentioned. And you can see how this protagonist has been dealt with. And Tagore, these are about how the travels of Tagore, influenced. And there is a book on his travel logs, Yatri, and about his painting that can be. Uh, and then these are the film adaptation, which are the movies in Hindi, which are worth watching, and they establish him as a writer of great themes. And he has also influenced Babula Neruda, John Renzen Germany, and his influence, I'm just concluding, and then you can see the Spanish literature, how Spanish literature has been, and the other, uh, there is a Yasunari Kwabata, a Japanese, who is also influenced by, and I have mentioned some of the works of that. In China, there is a potent influence in China, and that we can see that Krishna Rao, some of the French novelists, even in Karnataka, they have left an enduring impact on Urdu literature as well. And we can see these Bollywood songs which are very famous, which are based on his songs. And this you can see that these are commonplace songs, everyday songs. And this is what about that we contributed to Shanti Niketan and Vishwa Bharati. So he was a Vedantist, as an individualist, as an idealist, which I have discussed him, as a spiritualist, as a humanist and a naturalist, and we can see his internationalism. I wanted to discuss the theme of certain movies, but due to the lack of time, uh, I'm about the film adaptation for 10 minutes, but because of I stopped sharing the screen. And I thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Mithil Trivedi, for giving this excellent opportunity to work on R.N. Tagore, to learn from R.N. Tagore. And I congratulate him on his success of his conference. 2 days I've been listening to the various speakers, and I have learned a lot from them as well. So I stop my lecture here, Mithil sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry for my lecture, and I'm sorry for the mistakes I made. It was my maiden attempt at Rabindranath Tagore, and I was inspired by you to go deeper into R.N. Tagore and was exploring his research articles and all that. And I think it is helping me in one more sense because I'm pursuing my DLit on Nobel laureates in English literature. So starting with Rabindranath Tagore. So, still I'm searching and finding out the material of Rabindranath Tagore. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Sunny sir, could I request you to mute your audio? It creates disturbances.
Thank you very much, sir. I am Anukriti, an executive member of the organizing committee, and on the behalf of H.M. Patel English Studies Center and CVM Fine Arts University, I would like to extend our hearty gratitude for imparting your knowledge. The whole session was very engaging as you just not only talked about the perceptions and thoughts of Rabindranath Tagore but also connected it with different writers and poets and novelists what they thought about Rabindranath Tagore. And as you also gave suggestions about the movies and the recommendations, it was also very engaging. Once again, thank you, sir, for attending and enlightening us with your knowledge. And we think we should learn more. We will learn more things from you in future. So, for attending.
Thank you, Anukriti. I'm very, very happy that we have with us now the chief guest for this valedictory function. We also have the guest of honor with us. At this particular moment, I think I should apologize for just being late. The session took 7 minutes more than we expected, but it was so engaging, we didn't want to disturb the speaker. Navodita ma'am, we can officially start the valedictory function. Ami madam is here, and I think Sunny sir is also here. So let's start. Ami ma'am, we need your permission to start the valedictory session.
Please, Mithulji, please.
Thank you, madam. Navodita ma'am, we can just start.
Yes. So, good afternoon, all of you. I know the best English Studies Center, Vallabh in collaboration with organized is national seminar mission on Rabindranath Tagore. The key objectives for the event were to celebrate the works of Rabindranath Tagore in various fields and to understand the contribution of Rabindranath Tagore for the same. The event had a series of expert talks in various areas such as literature of Rabindranath, then paintings, music, character sketch of Rabindranath Tagore. The keynote address for the event was delivered by Professor Rajendra C. Jadeja, sir, Honorary Director, H.M. Patel Career Center. The event had number of plenary sessions delivered by Shri Kanu Patel sir, Dr. Vaibhav Joshi sir, and Dr. Paushali Das madam, retired Lieutenant Shri Satish Chandra Vyas sir, and Professor Ashok Sachdeva sir. All the sessions were really helpful to us. They were full with information as well as feelings. During the sessions, we felt so blessed to know much about Rabindranath Tagore, his life, his skills, his arts, and the importance and impact of his arts in the field of Indian literature especially. So we are really thankful to all the speakers to share their knowledge with us. At this occasion, it's a matter of honor for us to have Professor Ami Upadhyay Madam, Vice Chancellor, Baba Saheb Ambedkar University, Ahmedabad, as a chief guest, and Professor Sunny Thomas Sir, Dean, Faculty of Arts, the CVM University, Vallabh Vidyanagar, as the guest of honor for today's valedictory function. I would like to invite Dr. Mithul Trivedi Sir, the Director of H.M. Patel English Studies Center, to welcome our guest. Mithul.
Thank you very much, Navodita. It is always a force of motivation from all our seniors who have guided us and who have made us more active in taking up more challenging academic projects. Ami ma'am especially has always motivated us, and thank you for being with us today, ma'am. Your presence in itself is inspiring and motivating to all of us. On behalf of the H.M. Patel English Studies Center and the CVM College of Fine Arts, I extend my warm greetings and welcome to Professor Ami Upadhyay ma'am, the Vice Chancellor of Baba Saheb Ambedkar Open University, for agreeing to be with us for this valedictory function. We are also fortunate that Professor Sunny Thomas sir, who is one of the very senior faculty and academic member of the CVM University. He works as the Dean of the Faculty of Arts and looks after various programs and projects in the Faculty of Arts. We welcome you, sir, to this valedictory function. We have with us Shri Kanu Patel sir. We have other eminent scholars like Professor Ashok Sachdeva sir. And there are a number of participants who are watching us live on YouTube live streaming. I'm happy to share with the delegates and the guests that this conference has received tremendous response from all across India. We have around 595 official registrations for this conference and seminar, and they all are the representatives of more than 24 states of India. In that sense, it is truly a national event. Simultaneously, we have also planned an online painting exhibition by Shri Kanu Patel, on Rabindranath Tagore, of course, and that is also receiving a huge response from the audience. With this remark, I would also like to welcome all the participants and all the delegates, senior scholars and research scholars from across universities. I welcome you all on behalf of the H.M. Patel English Studies Center and the CVM College of Fine Arts. Rather than just mentioning the name of these two institutions, I think I would like to welcome Professor Amin ma'am on behalf of my university, the CVM University. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, sir, for your warm welcoming. Now I would like to invite Professor Sunny Thomas, sir, to enlighten us with his thoughts.
Mithul sir, can you see me? Yes, okay. A warm good evening to all of you. Today is a wonderful day for me. Personally speaking, Rabindranath Tagore, or we call it in West Bengal Gurudev, Rabindranath Tagore, lives in my thoughts and in my heart. As a student, I have been fortunate enough to visit Shantiniketan, stay there for more than 15 days, learning Rabindra Sangeet and a bit of Bengali. And I'm still reminded of the day when I visited his room, where he sat down and wrote many of his poems, short stories, etc. Believe me, it was nothing short of visiting any holy shrine. Again, on my way to Darjeeling, there is a hillock called Tindaria, where there is a Tagore estate is there, where he used to spend his summer days. And of course, looking at Kanchenjunga, Mount Everest, and the entire Himalayas, I'm sure he must have been very much inspired. I have been fortunate enough to read his original works in Bengali, and I am gripped by the passion and his humanism. What I have come across while doing Tagore's work, I felt that initially he was a firm believer
हाँ सर
in God, in the Creator.
हाँ
You would be surprised
हाँ
in churches, in temples, and in all other forms of worship places,
हाँ
Rabindra Sangeet is rendered as a part and parcel of prayer. At a later stage,
चौकस चौकस
if we delve into his stories, we realize that he has moved away from theism to atheistic morale. There are glimpses of existentialist philosophy prevailing in the heart of his stories and poems. And
सर श्रीमान सर ने
today,
अनुभूति है ना बंसी
as Dr. Mitul Trivedi sir has rightly said,
सुनील
we are celebrating one of the greatest son of, and the words which he has written is been converted into poetic form by our own dear friend, the greatest painter in Gujarat, Sri Kanu Patel. So it is a confluence of both words and pictures coming together. I cannot express my feeling of happiness and exuberance because my association with the land of Bengal was as long as 7 to 8 years, and it always had a sense of mysticism which I could experience during these days. So once again, I want to thank and congratulate the organizers of this event and taking such a beautiful initiative to bring forth the creative writings of our own greatest poet, storyteller, Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore. Thank you, Dr. Mitul Trivedi and Sri Kanu Patel sir, for having me here. I am actually taken back by another, let's say, 20 years where I spent my time in Shantiniketan, where I spent my time in Darjeeling. Thank you once again, and I wish that we should have more such webinars, and if God gives us an opportunity offline, face to face, where we can see the pictures from close quarters, appreciate it, experience the exuberance, and I wish the organizers that you scale it up, and we shall all be there to encourage and to celebrate the greatest son of our country. Thank you once again, Honorable Vice Chancellor, and all the learned guests who have taken part in the seminar. I am not a student of English literature. I am a student of economics. But I can tell you, my first love is English and English literature. So therefore, I am very grateful to all of you for having me in the valedictory session. Thank you. Thank you, Mitul sir, and thank you, Kanu Patel sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing your experience and feelings with us. We are feeling so lucky to have you with us. Thank you so much, sir. Now I would like to invite Professor Ami Upadhyay Madam to share her ideas and blessings with us.
Namaskar. First of all, for such a wonderful program, I would congratulate H.M. Patel English Studies Center and CVM Fine Arts College. And it's really a pleasure to see Mitulji and Kanubhai after a long time. So happy to see. I was listening to Professor Sachdev, and when at the end of an hour he said that time was not enough, so I could not finish. So I'm sure now all of you must be sympathized with me that I'm a Tagore lover, supposed to speak for Tagore in 10 minutes. So first of all, when Navoditaji was telling that in these 2 days we could know Tagore a lot, mentioning all the speakers. Once you really know, you stop knowing him and you start loving him. The moment you start loving him, you really start cherishing the knowledge by him. And somewhere I very strongly feel that in Gujarat, Ramesh Parekh, and in India, Tagore, they are to be loved. They are not to be known. Yes. About Tagore, when I looked at the title, it said that Rabindranath Tagore shades, sounds and words. Kanuji, why movements, dance is missing? I am a classical dancer, so I was searching for dance. But then I suddenly realized,
એટલે મેં કાર્ડમાં ડાન્સના ચિત્રો લીધા.
I could understand it quite well. Yeah, but then I realized later on, Tagore was synonym of dance movements. When we talk about shades, colors are dancing. When we talk about literature, the words are dancing. Everywhere there is dance in the life aside. Yes, when Mathuji was speaking, I have stayed Shantiniketan for 2 days. And 2 days I simply, I cherished, I could breathe Tagore there, I could read Tagore there, I can witness Tagore there, I can listen Tagore there. So Tagore is there in Shantiniketan. And especially, Kanuji, when under the tree, a fakir of around 75 years was playing baul music. And there even though we sat there, and for an hour we heard and we didn't realize how the time passing by. And then I realized that that was the Tagore we were experiencing. And I think Tagore is all about that. Tagore was a man of space and freedom. Whether you talk about education, dance, literature, he was more than a Walt Whitman of India, I would say. So he was a man of space and freedom. Very few people would be there. There are great people, maybe Aurobindo, Gandhi, Ambedkarji, Vivekanand had very great ideas about education, maybe spiritualism. There would be great people would be, might have contributed a lot in performing arts, fine arts, music and everything. Rarely in the world there will be a person, you mention literature, he'll be there. You mention music, he'll be there. You mention dance, he'll be there. You mention anything, he will be there. And there comes the spirit of Tagore comes in picture. Really, whenever I think of Tagore, when somebody had mentioned Kanuji long back, I'm talking about 2013. So he was compared with Tagore, that वो Tagore जैसे लगते हैं. And then you know that he looks like Tagore, he performed the role of Tagore. That really encouraged me that I should meet him. That do I really find some spirit of Tagore an individual? So that is, Tagore is a quest synonym. Quest of the eternal happiness. Literature, if doesn't give you that Nijananda or eternal happiness, if that drawing, painting, colors, dance, music, if that doesn't give you eternal happiness, then they are not there. They are not there in their original spirit. And there Tagore comes in picture. I think if about Tagore one really may speak for hours together. I do remember, long back I was reading Gandhi, and there I found a reference of Tagore. Gandhi and Tagore, they were supposed to go somewhere together. And then Gandhi got ready fast, very fast. Tagore took some time. And when it comes to aesthetics, he was synonym to aesthetics. So he took time. And then Gandhi, with good sense of humor, he made a statement that being a man, you take so much of time getting ready, you take so much time in dressing up. Then Tagore responded, he replied very well. He said, Gandhi, you and me both are in favor of non-violence. When God has gifted me with such beautiful face, such wonderful physique, I should not convert it into ugliness, because ugliness is it's a violence to the eyes of the viewers. So I am also here for non-violence and you are also for non-violence. Now you see, that spontaneity, that sense of humor and that true love for aesthetics, we do not come to know that easily. The best part of Tagore, as I have to finish in 7, 8, 10 minutes, the best part of Tagore, because I've done me and Mitul Bhai, we are friends because we are from English literature. We studied together at the time. So literature, classical dance, and obviously dance is very closely associated with the music also. So somewhere I feel whenever I see the words Reading a poetry, the choreography I visualize. And when I see a dance, maybe the dance may not have words, but the words somewhere come from the background. I think this is what Tagore is all about. Tagore never separated any one art from the other. He was a man who could understand every word, every alphabet, every line has something aesthetic in it. And generally, unfortunately, people fail to understand it. And that's why when he writes, somewhere I feel beautiful. Where the world is not broken up into fragments, Shanti Niketan is the place where you will not find. Now you see, national education policy talks about multidisciplinary studies, interdisciplinary study. Tagore lived that life years back. He himself was a university in himself. So Shanti Niketan is fine, but Tagore is a university. So multidisciplinary fragments, there is no fragment. Whenever I see pictures of Kanu Patelji, I really see beautiful poems in that. When I read poems, I was reading poems of Pritha Madam. The words and the paintings, they were mingling somewhere. And Tagore is all about that. And especially when he writes, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever widening thoughts and action into that heaven of freedom. I think the moment you feel yourself free, the Tagore is there within you. Again, I would conclude my speech telling that fine, read Tagore, somewhere maybe imitate Tagore, but if you start loving Tagore, you start being Tagore. And being Tagore means being the spirit of life itself. I really thank the organizers to invite me, and I'm sure that Tagore would be more explored, and as he will be more explored, he would be more loved. He is a person to be loved. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. As you said, Rabindranath Tagore sir is an immense personality to be loved. And I guess we are at the initial stage of knowing him, and will definitely read a lot, understand about his personality, and will definitely follow that. We are eager to listen more from you, ma'am, about Rabindranath Tagore in future. And thank you so much, ma'am, for being a part of our event. Thank you, ma'am. Further, I would like to invite Dr. Shemal Mewara sir to conclude the event by performing vote of thanks.
Thank you so much, madam. I feel immense pleasure to deliver a vote of thanks of a successful event organized by H.M. Patel English Studies Center and CVM College of Fine Arts. The theme was Rabindranath Tagore, Shades, Sounds and Words. First of all, I would like to congratulate the team H.M. Patel English Studies Center and CVM College of Fine Arts for the successful event, because there were more than 600 participants from all over the nation. I take this opportunity to thank Sri Bhikhubhai Patel Sahib, President, Charutar Vidya Mandal University, Sri P.M. Udani Sahib, Director General, CVM University, and all the officials of CVM University to support and permission to organize such a national event. I would take this opportunity to thank the keynote speakers of the event, Dr. Rajendra Singh Jadeja Sahib. Sir talked about education philosophy of Rabindranath Tagore, and Sir connected the philosophy of education of Tagore with New Education Policy 2020. I would also thank Sri Kanubhai Patel Sahib. Sir talked about contemporary aesthetics, influence and relevance of Rabindranath Tagore on on the contemporary context. I also thank Sri Vaibhav Bhai Joshi Sahib. Sir talked about narratives of life of Tagore in the post office. I thank Paushali Das Madam Madam talked about the journey of Rabindranath Tagore as an artist. Madam also displayed the various paintings of Tagore, and Madam discussed about the different themes of the paintings of Tagore. Shri Satish Chandra Vyas sir talked about Ravindra music and his journey, the study into the tradition of Tagore. It was really an interesting session. Professor Ashok Sachdeva Sahib sir talked about Tagore and his legacy, Indian writing in English after Rabindranath Tagore. I also thank Professor Ami Upadhyay, Vice Chancellor Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar Open University. I thank Sri Sunny Thomas sir, Dean Faculty of Arts, CVM University, for the support and the presence in valedictory function. I take this opportunity, in fact, how could I forget the organizing committee of this event, the students of MA ELT of HM Patel English Studies Center. So I congratulate Joel, Nisha, Radhika, Drashti, Anukruti, Bansri and Sunil for their wonderful organizing, their planning and organization of this event. I congratulate Dr. Mitul Trivedi and Sri Kanwai Patel Sahib for their guidance in the overall organization of this event. At the end, in fact, I have to play Rashtragit to conclude this national seminar. So I request all of you to please stand at your places for Rashtragit.
भारत भाग्य विधाता
पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा
द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा
विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा
उच्छल जलधि तरंग तव शुभ नाम जागे तब शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा
जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे
भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, madam.
Thank you very much, Shamal. You have contributed a lot to this event, and the credit of its success also goes to you. Thank you. Thank you, Ami ma'am, for being with us and for taking out time from your busy schedule because it's a great honor for us. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
It was great pleasure. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Goodbye, everyone. With this particular end note, we conclude our national seminar here. Thank you. Very nice.